Welcome to the Top Post Drama Series, where I'll retell real-life stories full of high-stakes drama from emotional standoffs in the office to unexpected personal crises. Fasten your seatbelt, because over the next 5 minutes you'll ride through 5 heart-pounding dramas that will stir your anger, break your heart, and sometimes make you crack a wicked smile. So let's kick things off with Story 1, where a coworker literally turns the workplace into a psychological emergency room. Story 1. Susan, the from hell coworker and the emotional storm. I'm Anne, and I've been at this company for exactly 1 year. A tiny office of about 10 people all doing desk work. You might think office life is easy: type away in the morning, shut down your computer in the afternoon, go home. But imagine the person sitting next to you constantly crying, sharing the most intimate details of their life, then slipping back behind a professional mask that trembles like a pressure cooker about to blow. I'm not great at small talk. In fact, I fiercely guard the line between work and personal life. Susan, my desk neighbor, is the exact opposite. She wears her heart on her sleeve. First thing in the morning, she bursts in with, "Good morning, everyone. I'm feeling really down today." By afternoon, she's clutching her chest and confessing, "Ugh, I've had an anal fistula for over a week now." Then she launches into a blow-by-blow of symptoms and antibiotics, expecting me to sympathize. One Wednesday afternoon, I was deep into a finance podcast with my headphones on. Suddenly, Slack pinged. Susan wants to share something. Susan's voice crackled through, trembling and tearful. And I forgot to mention I just got diagnosed with an anal fissure. Am I the only one this happens to? My heart froze. I ripped off my headphones, inhaled sharply, and managed, "Are you okay?" But who could feel okay hearing that at work? I buried my face on my desk and typed the 2-word reply. "Oh no." Susan pressed on. "It hurts so much. I saw the doctor, but nothing's better. I can't sleep. I wished I could hit ESC and erase the entire conversation. Whenever a minor work snag happened, a misdirected email or a report that needed revising, Susan would erupt in full drama. The room would fill with sobs. Huff-puff. Her fists tap the desk like a distorted heartbeat. Drip. Drip. Tears land on the polished wood. Splash coffee splatters across pristine documents. I could see Min in the corner trying to hide his exhaustion after rushing into the hallway for air. And Ms. Ha from HR would glance at me, shaking her head in silent exasperation. For 3 days straight, I begged our manager to intervene, painting a picture of our office-turned-circus. He nodded sympathetically but took no action. Then I approached HR. They held a meeting and promised to look into it. I sat under the buzzing fluorescent lights listening as HR gently advised, "Try to understand and empathize with her." I nearly laughed to myself. Sympathize so much that I lose all composure and focus. The next morning, walking into work felt like entering a labyrinth. Every footstep might trigger Susan's tears. I sat down, exhaled. Here we go again. I'd barely boot up my computer when I'd hear her sniffle and sniff, and I just discovered a lump. I can't even... No pep talk or excuse could prepare me. Sometimes I'd fake a phone call and nudge my coffee cup toward her desk as a hint. "Feel free to cry, just not on me." But she'd still bury her face in her hands and sob. This is all I have to share. Our teammates quietly avoided Susan. They felt sympathy, yes, but also fatigue. At the sound of her crying, they'd swivel away faster than lasers' fingers flying over keyboards or dashing to the kitchenette. Who really wants to hear about anal fissures or intimate teenage drama in a professional setting? One day, Susan blew up because she'd entered $200 instead of $20 on a customer's invoice. Our manager said, "Susan, please fix that for the client." Cue the waterworks. She threw her pen, pounded her chest. The desk lamp flickered in time with her sobs. The whole office groaned. Not again. Watching her over-the-top performance felt like enduring a tragic melodrama. I wondered, am I a monster for feeling nothing but exasperation? But after she bawled at every new email or confession right there on the work papers, I realized it wasn't me being heartless. It was Susan shattering the unspoken limits of workplace professionalism. Emotional sharing doesn't entitle someone to turn the office into a 24/7 therapy room. Empathy is critical, but an overdose can derail productivity and morale. When HR and management dodge a true issue, they choose the illusion of peace over real solutions. And me, I cleared out my desk and started looking for a company where I can listen to finance podcasts, not daily anal fisher podcasts. Story 2. When private photos become a weapon. An anonymous victim. First person, I'm Huang, 19 years old in 2018, working at a small restaurant in my hometown. I loved the kitchen work behind the scenes, but I never imagined I'd one day become the victim of such a sophisticated attack. That morning, I was switching shifts, plugging in my earbuds to listen to some light music before I began stacking plates. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. Huang, someone messaged saying they saw your photo on a site. I bolted upright, hands shaking as I opened the notification. On screen was a bright red link, and the message, "Your photos are on Site X, a non-consensual site posting women's changing room pictures." My heart stopped. The world went dark. My ears rang and my pulse thundered in my throat. My co-workers stared at me in confusion. A few even laughed. "Are you kidding?" But when I clicked the link and saw clear shots of me changing in the staff restroom, my real name, my address, and Instagram snaps from my private account, all posted without my consent, I knew this was no prank. Someone had secretly photographed me and publicly uploaded the images. I sank to the floor as neon lights from the bar counter cast a sickly glow on my pale face. A cold sweat ran down my nose. I thought, what can I do to save my dignity? I called the police that very day. Sirens wailed on the radio as I stood in the owner's office. My boss looked at me as if I were the criminal grilling me. "Where did these photos come from? Which coworker had access to your private Instagram?" I stammered, explaining that Tung sometimes left his backpack in the restroom and once forgot his phone in his pocket. That evening, I video called my parents. My mother sobbed in silence on the screen. My father's voice trembled with anger. "We will pursue this to the end." He pounded his fist on the table. I hurried to hand off my shift to a friend too ashamed to meet anyone's eyes. A few days later, the police summoned several co-workers for questioning. Tung had already fled back to his hometown, blocked every number, and vanished. Though he was the prime suspect, there was no hard evidence. Every offending image had been wiped from Instagram, and the investigation stalled. Desperate, I went to the local news. The next morning, a TV crew shone bright lights in my face as I stood before a microphone, voice shaking. "To every woman out there, if you see any sign of your privacy being violated, speak up. Don't stay silent and let perpetrators think we're complicit." I thought everything would come to light, but the owner delayed the broadcast, fearing damage to the restaurant's reputation. I had to call repeatedly, even email them official police documents before I was finally allowed to go on air. It felt like I was fighting to reclaim my own privacy. That same evening back at work, I donned my gloves and wiped down tables as if nothing had happened. But inside, I felt shattered. Those horrifying images still haunted me. Fortunately, a few close co-workers shared the link in a private group chat, encouraging other victims to speak out. Gradually, I realized I wasn't alone. Never underestimate your right to privacy. Personal photos can become a deadly weapon. If you can't stand alone, use the power of collective voices to fight back. The law and the press are allies, but you must be persistent and resolute. I am Huang, and my story is still unfolding. By sharing it, I hope more women will find the courage to speak up and protect themselves. I am not a silent victim. I am a woman who stood up to fight. Story 3. A C-section is no shortcut when your pain is mocked. First person. I'm a 25-year-old mom who went through an emergency C-section 6 months ago. Before it happened, I always thought giving birth was a sacred moment, no matter what it had to be natural, the topic my friends and I would passionately debate. But when complications struck, I had no choice, and that experience was etched into my life with blood and tears. I remember that moment perfectly, the hurried footsteps of nurses, the harsh halogen lights flooding the operating table, the cold sting of antiseptic in the air that made my skin crawl. I hovered between sleep and wakefulness, the monitor's steady beep-beep in my ears, a nurse whispering, "We're prepping anesthesia doctors about to start the C-section." I forced my eyes open, but the brightness and the voice made me dizzy. Then the cold scalpel sliced through my flesh, carving a long scar across my belly. That wasn't an easy way out. It was the most excruciating pain of my life. Each incision through skin, each drop of blood on the sterile drapes, the suction machine's hiss like it was trying to suck my soul out. I felt every fiber of my muscle being separated, my heart tightening each time the doctor lifted my baby from me, and although his first cry echoed around me, I couldn't smile. I felt torn in two, body and spirit traded for my son's life. When I awoke in recovery, everything still swam before my eyes. I gingerly touched the rigid bandage over my incision, my fingers trembling at the hard scar beneath. The smell of antibiotics and the sight of nurses taking vitals, doctors examining the wound, I lay motionless, pain so sharp I couldn't move, breathing shallow to get through each cramp. Staring at that scar, I vowed, from now on, I'm a warrior. Even if my body feels broken, I won't give up. But I didn't expect that the pain would linger not just on my skin, but deep in my soul. A few weeks after coming home still weak, my boyfriend, the man who should have protected me, dismissed my pain as oversensitivity. He sneered, "A C-section is so easy and you keep complaining. It's not natural birth, you just get cut open and done." I froze, fighting tears. "You don't know," I whispered. He turned away, arrogance on his face. "Don't be upset. Isn't a C-section the shortcut?" I felt utterly humiliated. How could the person meant to cherish and shield me treat my ordeal as a joke? I clenched my teeth, each mocking word shattering me further. One evening we fought. I held our baby, tears streaming, voice cracking. I endured a terrifying surgery. "Do you even understand my pain?" He laughed, thinking I was overreacting. I sobbed uncontrollably, the room erupting in chaos, our baby's wails, the bedroom light flickering with my ragged breaths. I felt so alone I could barely breathe. After that night, I stared at my sleeping baby and thought I deserve respect. I deserve understanding. I thought of the thousands of other women who endured this surgery, and I knew I couldn't stay silent. The next day, I looked him in the eye and said firmly, "You can make jokes, but I'm not your punchline. If you keep mocking my C-section, we can't go on." He fell silent, unable to meet my gaze. I realized it wasn't just his refusal to empathize, it was a refusal to face how brutal that surgery really is. I shared my story in a mom's support group. The OR lights the beep-beep of monitors, the scar, the pain, and that there's nothing easy about a C-section. The flood of messages pouring in, thank yous, comfort, solidarity showed me I wasn't alone. In speaking honestly, my pain was finally heard, and my injustice condemned. I found community, empathy, and strength. A C-section isn't a shortcut, but a path of courage through fear and suffering. No one has the right to mock your pain, especially the person who vowed to protect you. Speak your truth to find understanding and the respect you deserve. I'm one of countless mothers who've had a C-section. My story isn't for my ex. It's for anyone who ever thought an easier route lay in a surgical cut. You know the courage it takes, and you deserve to be heard. Story 4. I will cheat. A threat in the bedroom. First person. I'm 30 years old this year, living with my wife and 2 young children in a quiet city. Family life was so peaceful it felt almost boring, mornings getting the kids ready for school, afternoons helping my wife cook, evenings cuddled together watching Netflix. I always believed our marriage would carry us through anything until one night left me speechless when my wife uttered words I could hardly believe. It was Friday evening dusk, settling in after a long day at work. I brushed my teeth, washed my face, slipped into my simple pajamas, and got into bed. The only light was the weak glow from the bedside lamp while the TV looped Olympic highlights. I held my wife close and pressed a soft kiss on her forehead, savoring a few private moments at last. Just seconds later, Thu spun around, eyes shining with anger. "You didn't shower, you didn't brush your teeth, and you're just lying here. I'd rather sleep with someone else." My heart stopped. A chill ran down my spine, the dim light seeming to falter. Only Thu, our sleeping children in the next room, and me were there. My blood froze in my veins, pooling in my throat and eyes. Her words hit me like a gunshot. "You're not even worth my care." I fought to stay calm, voice low. "What do you want? You're mad because I was too lazy to shower." Thu snapped upright and gave me a light slap on the shoulder. "You don't get it. You need to care to make an effort to show you want me. And instead, you make me go find someone else." I bristled. "Find someone else who could comfort you better with fingers smoother than mine." Thu's voice went ice cold. "If you keep acting indifferent, I will cheat on you. I'll find someone who actually brushes their teeth and sprays perfume for me." The word cheat crashed over me like scalding oil on my heart. I reached out and turned off the TV. Our kids stirred a creaking footstep, a sudden wail, and the air crackled with tension. After things calmed, Thu removed her contact lenses, rested her hand on the nightstand, and stared at me. "Tonight I won't sleep with you. And from now on, anytime you don't make yourself smell good, I will go find someone who will." Her gaze sent shivers down my spine. That night I lay awake restless. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with a message from her. "Hope you find someone who cares for you better than I do. Sweet dreams tonight." I waited a moment, then typed back, "You want me to pay attention, I will. Let's talk in the morning." Silence followed, punctuated only by her sigh on the other end. In the dead of night, I heard our son cry once, then again, then finally quiet. I got up and tiptoed to his room, hugging him close. His sleepy eyes and innocence made me ache. How could I let my own anger overshadow our children's needs? I realized I'd been so caught up in work and life's grind that I'd forgotten to nurture my marriage. I'd let our love grow cold, leaving Thu to feel unloved and unseen. The next morning at breakfast, sunlight streaming through the curtains, I spoke softly. "Honey, I'm sorry I let you feel abandoned. I promise to make you feel special every day." Thu's eyes were red and puffy, her voice husky. "Do you know what it feels like to be abandoned? I want my husband to be the only one who makes me feel loved." Then she pulled me into a trembling hug. "I was terrified of losing you." I replied, "I'm terrified of losing you too." After that night, we sat down and laid out some simple agreements. 1. Daily care ritual shower and apply a little cologne every evening. 2. Weekly date night. Phones off, just the two of us going out to eat or watch a movie. 3. Open communication. If either of us feels neglected, speak up immediately. Don't let resentment build. These small commitments reminded us that marriage isn't just sharing a home or children, but sharing feelings and tender gestures, brushing hair, a forehead kiss, even lathering shampoo for one another after a shower. Your marriage bed must be made with respect and care every single minute. A threat can be a wake-up call or an anchor that drags your relationship down. True connection comes from daily acts of care and honest communication. I'm Dung, and since that night, I've learned to show love through the smallest gestures because love needs nurturing every day, not just when threats are made. Story 5. Pet love and divorce. When love for a pet becomes a weapon. First person. I'm Lynn, 29 years old, and I always treated Gracie and Shank like members of my family. Gracie was a little golden-furred dog who'd wag her tail whenever I came home, and Shank was calm and intelligent, leaning his head against my leg whenever I was sad. We spent countless Christmases together, countless evenings in the park watching sunsets. Then came the day my life fell apart. My divorce turned my beloved pets into weapons against me. In 2018, I met my now ex-husband at a volunteer picnic. He carried a backpack and joked about being hungry. I brought Gracie and Shank along to introduce them. These are my two chubby kids. He smiled gently, fed Gracie a treat, and asked Shank's name. My heart skipped a beat. I thought, this is the person who will love everything I hold dear. After 2 years of dating, we married and moved into a sunny little house where morning light streamed through the living room window. Gracie and Shank were as sweet as ever each morning, sneaking a bite of my toast each afternoon, snuggling into my lap when a cold wind blew. I never imagined I'd lose that love or that it would become a weapon in our breakup. When we divorced, he argued that the dogs were his property. He had owned them before we married. I tried to prove I'd cared for them for years, had driven across town to buy medicine for Gracie, had cried myself dry beside Shank when he suffered from a sudden disorder. But the court shook its head. Anything owned prior to marriage belongs to the husband. The judge's cold pronouncement, "Those dogs are ours, not yours," shattered me. On the day I received the ruling, I went home and wept by the living room window. My tears pooled on the floor, mingling with the last golden rays of dusk. Gracie and Shank pressed against my legs, licking my hand in unconditional comfort. Months later, I saw a post in a local pet adoption group. Gracie was at the city shelter. My heart stopped. I raced there under a pale afternoon sky, down a narrow corridor of gleaming metal cages. Dogs barked faintly. The smell of disinfectant mixed with dried waste hung in the air. I found cage number 117, and the indicator light glowed green. Gracie had been euthanized 3 days earlier. It felt like a knife plunged into my chest. Sweat-damp strands of hair clung to my forehead as I stared at the small photograph they handed me. Gracie lying peacefully, her eyes closed in eternal rest. I collapsed to the ground, clutching the photo as my sobs echoed down the hallway. Strangers passing by all looked back in shock. While I lay there, my phone rang. It was my ex-husband, Lynn. I heard about Gracie. I opened my mouth to scream, but only a choked "Why?" came out. He replied casually, "I didn't have time to care for her. The shelter said someone would adopt her soon. I didn't expect they'd put her down." The words "I didn't expect" cut like a poisoned arrow. Did he truly not expect it? Or did he not care? I hung up the silence, my only answer. Refusing to give up, I immediately tried to reclaim Shank. I called the shelter repeatedly. They sent me an adoption link, Shank 4-year-old lab mix waiting for a new home. I frantically dialed their number, pleading, "I'm his original owner. I'll pay all fees and care for him forever." But they told me he'd already been adopted. My heart shattered all over again. I ended up on a park bench, where I once walked both dogs, clutching a water bottle, my gaze fixed on empty air. I replayed Gracie chasing a shuttlecock Shank, offering me his paw in a messy handshake. Tears streamed down my face, each drop carving fresh wounds through the past. Later, I shared my ordeal on Reddit and got a response from user Social Turnip. My ex also gave our dog away after every fight. I spent weeks begging at shelters. In the end, I just stopped because it was too cruel. That comment was a flicker of light in my darkness. I realized I wasn't alone. Many other women had endured the same cruel tactic. I've decided that one day soon, I will adopt a new dog. I'll name her Hope, because hope never truly dies. Together, Hope and I will visit the shelter again, and together, we will heal. Pets are living beings, not bargaining chips. A breakup doesn't give anyone the right to weaponize love. Custody of a pet shouldn't be treated like marital property. They're emotional companions, not assets to divide. Hope endures even when loss defines your darkest days. You can still open your heart to love again. I'm Lynn. And though Gracie's story is a wound that will never fully close, it also fuels my resolve to keep loving and to believe that after every night, the dawn still comes. So, we've just taken you through 5 real smoking hot stories packed with drama and emotion, from office politics to personal heartaches. Each tale peels back a hidden corner of everyday life where the line between private and public, between love and reproach, is always razor thin. Which story struck you the most? Drop a comment below to share your feelings and experiences. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and share. Hit subscribe so you won't miss the next episodes of Top Post's Drama. See you in the next video where I'll dig up even more stories you won't be able to look away from.